I rise to speak in firm opposition to the North Adelaide Public Golf Course Bill 2025. The Adelaide Parklands are a special, unique and vitally important part of South Australia. They are a living and breathing history and are listed on the National Heritage List. To quote briefly from the National Heritage List website, the Adelaide Parklands and city layout is widely regarded as a masterwork of urban design and signifies a turning point in the settlement of Australia. Adelaide was the first city to be planned and developed, not as a penal settlement or military outpost, but as a place for free settlers. Given this importance, it is deeply disappointing to see the Malinauskas government attempt yet another land grab at the behest, this time, of a sporting tournament. Too often, when a new development is in need and around the CBD, state governments have looked at the parklands as supposed free land, and it is indeed free. But it is not their land. They feel they can snap it up and build upon it. It shouldn't be a surprise that when LIV Golf came knocking at the state government's door, wanting a new home for their event after Grange, the Premier was all too ready to point them in the direction of the North Adelaide Golf Course. Possum Park, Park 1 in its entirety, and a significant chunk of John E. Brown Park, Park 27A, will be seized by the state under this bill, should it pass. That will be to facilitate a multi-million-dollar redevelopment of the golf course. This no doubt puts numerous significant and mature trees directly in the line of bulldozers. Currently, this bill would require 3 new trees or seedlings for not less than 3 trees be planted for every tree removed during the project. 3 seedlings is nowhere near enough to make up for the loss of significant mature trees. And with some reports suggesting at least 600 trees being lost within Possum Park for this redevelopment, it's no wonder that so many are concerned about what that loss will mean for the parklands, the people's parklands, Mr. President. Another concern for many in the community is the massive footprint of this project. This project is likely to include the expansion of buildings currently located in Possum Park, as well as new buildings, including, I believe, an indoor driving range. I fail to understand how an indoor driving range and newly redeveloped multi-million-dollar golf course is supposed to be in keeping with Colonel Light's vision for the parklands, or indeed the people of South Australia's expectations of the protection of our parklands. Indeed, South Australians are rising up against this, and the amusingly and very alliterative Possum Park Protection Platoon is on the case, and they are planning the next stage in their battle to protect Park 1 of the Adelaide Parklands from the state government's chainsaws, as I say, threatening hundreds of trees in what is a unique urban golf course forest currently. Those hundreds of Parkland supporters came together on the steps of this State Parliament House on World Environment Day, the 5th of June. And why did they do so? Well, it's not just about a golf course. They have banded together to protect what is a very precious part of South Australia. The banners and posters that were at that particular rally stated messages such as "Parks for people, not FIFO millionaires." I might add billionaires, actually. "Parks need life, not live." Another banner read, "Pete, we need life, not live." And further, protesters on the day, including myself, Mr. President, raised some other concerns other than simply the attack on the environment and the very public history of the parklands that this embodies. We are told that LIV Golf is golf but louder. I think that's a little bit of false advertising. Sure, there's DJs. Sure, it's a party. Sure, it's a piss-up. Do you know what LIV Golf is? It's golf but bloodier. It sportswashes human rights abuses, and our Premier is inviting the great white shonk, Greg Norman, to amplify that sportswashing, all on the public dime and on public land. They don't need our money. In fact, the LIV Golf series is offering the richest purse in pro-golf history. Why? Because it is funded by the Public Investment Fund of the Saudi government, a fund designed to sportswash their human rights abuses. And don't take my word for it, take a look at the Human Rights Watch reports. Indeed, they raised their alarm that the Saudi $2 billion plus sovereign wealth fund is designed to sportswash that country's egregious human rights abuses, and note that it's controlled by the Saudi Prime Minister and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The kingdom, of course, hosts the funds and has glamorous events, including the LIV golf tournament. They are involved not just in sports, of course, but as the Premier will point to, Live Nation is connected with the LIV fund. But LIV Golf is one of the flagships, and here we are buying it hook, line and sinker and helping them wash the blood off their hands. Mr. President, LIV Golf has been controversial, and rightly so, for its sports washing. And I think it's important at this point in this debate to reflect on why. Jamal Khashoggi, a Saudi journalist, was murdered on the 2nd of October 2018 inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. He was lured there to obtain paperwork for his upcoming wedding. His fiancée waited outside for over 5 hours and he never returned. He was killed by a team of Saudi agents, I believe some 15 of them, flown over on both commercial and private jets at the order of the very man who controls the Public Investment Fund, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Khashoggi was a critic of the Saudi government, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman saw his writings as a threat. A UN report concluded that Khashoggi was the victim of a premeditated extrajudicial killing for which the state of Saudi Arabia is responsible. At first they denied that he'd never left the embassy. For 5 days, his fiancée went to the media, and the government of Saudi Arabia claimed that he had left of his own volition. We now know, particularly because the Turkish government actually bugged the embassy, that that was a lie by the Saudi Arabian government. Indeed, we know his last words were, "I can't breathe," as they suffocated him. And then while he was alive, they dismembered his body. It is far more appropriate to call this the Bonesaw Cup than the LIV Golf Tournament. And indeed, Mr. President, many do and will continue to. The motive there of the Saudi Arabian government was to silence dissent. Greg Norman, the Chief Executive Officer of LIV Golf, who is indeed a millionaire, doing the behest and the sports washing work of billionaires, wrote this off as a, quote, mistake. Indeed, at a news conference, he was questioned about this issue, specifically to do with his promotion of the LIV Golf Tournament. Mr. Norman, the Great White Shonk, stated in a question about whether he was concerned that LIV Golf was being financed by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, controlled by Mohammed bin Salman, Mr. Norman said, "From what I heard and what you guys reported, just take ownership of what it is. Take ownership, no matter what it is. Look, we've all made mistakes and you just want to learn from those mistakes and how you correct them going forward." That's a bit of a mistake, Mr. President, to somehow accidentally... A mistake is an accident. A mistake is not a premeditated 15 people flown to another country, murder and dismemberment, and disappearing because his body has never been found, disappearing of a dissident. That is hardly a mistake. Not so many are as forgiving as Mr. Norman. Perhaps money talks, Mr. President, even when you're a millionaire. Freedom has a higher price. And far from this being a single mistake, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International will show you that even today, while the LIV golf tournament continues, the human rights abuses continue. Indeed, currently, the social media company formerly known as Twitter, X, is facing civil US lawsuits. And that is because they have cooperated with the Saudi Arabian government to not just silence, but imprison and persecute those who make comments on what was Twitter and is now X. Indeed, freedom of speech has no place in the Saudi Arabian regime if it is critical of their government. Then, Mr. President, when you reflect upon this and how the world had public outcry about Mr. Khashoggi, and how the world quite rightly condemns the execution for public comment of the citizens of Saudi Arabia, it is no surprise that people in Saudi Arabia and the Public Investment Fund, and indeed the leadership of that nation, are willing to pay as much money as it takes to sportswash their way out of those human rights abuses, to somehow cleanse their image. And South Australia has become complicit in this. And not only, and it would surprise many South Australians to know, not only is this being done in a way where the South Australian government has come to the party, this golf but louder, come to the party to celebrate LIV Golf when no one else in Australia wanted it. No other golf course were putting their hand up. Indeed, in Sydney and Victoria, it was denied. The Victorian government certainly didn't want a bar of it. The Royal Sydney Golf Course voted it down. Nobody wanted this event because they understood that it came with a price. Not only did it come with a price of sacrificing South Australians' reputation, but of course we now know that South Australia is pouring tens of millions of dollars into this event. We are not being paid off. Indeed, we have bought in to the human rights abuses. Mr. President, it is gravely concerning that the state government has doubled down in its support of this event. Sure, the Adelaide LIV golf tournament was successful. Do you know what? I might not be a golf player. I have played golf. I might not design golf courses. I might not put on tournaments, but I tell you what, with $50 million, I could probably get someone to do that pretty well without sacrificing our commitment to democracy and to human rights in this state. Indeed, anyone, Mr. President, I would think could put on a pretty good party given the tens of millions of dollars that are being put up here for what are effectively millionaires' and billionaires' playthings. There is no reason that we should be sacrificing our state's reputation as a place where women gained the right to stand for Parliament and to serve in Parliament, where we have a proud history of things like the secret ballot, where we can have debates and we know we won't end up dismembered in a body bag hidden somewhere for having a disagreement of opinion. But what is really concerning to me about this bill is that hidden in it, and as the Honourable Michelle Lensink has noted, hidden in it are provisions that are intended to silence dissent. The Major Events Act, Mr. President, will be employed for this, and that is an act that while it was, I believe, back in the day, and the Minister might correct me on this, but I think it was the International Cricket Committee, we were having a major event and they sought some protections from people running on the field and so on, and we had a few bills hurriedly passed through Parliament, but for big events where people have not wanted there to be any disruptions, there are extreme provisions in the Major Events Act that stop what is called ambush marketing. So my first question to the government is, will the government guarantee that none of the provisions that criminalise ambush marketing will be used to protect the reputation of LIV Golf. We celebrate diversity and dissent in this state, and we have a proud democracy. I would hate to think that somebody, as has happened in previous LIV Golf events down at Grange, that anyone protesting and highlighting that this is indeed better framed as the Bonesaw Cup than the LIV Golf tournament might fall foul of the law or be subject to significant penalties under those ambush marketing provisions of that Major Events Act. Further, I note that this event will be moved from Grange to the City of Adelaide. And I've got to say, the people of Adelaide won't cop silencing of dissent and sacrificing of our parklands. They will continue to protest, and I know there's another one in just over a week's time, Mr President, about the range of land grabs currently being undertaken on our parklands. But when they come with an extra serve of human rights abuses of them, I imagine many South Australians will simply not stomach that any longer. While the Premier boasts an incredibly high popularity polling at the moment, and that would have no doubt come as somewhat of a wake-up call for the Liberal opposition, I suspect that this government is currently quite complacent. And I say just look to history to see what can happen in the seat of Adelaide. This is an educated electorate. This is an engaged electorate. This is an electorate who is now watching what this government does. And while now Premier Malinauskas came to power in the last election as a supposed husband, father and average footy player, perhaps he's turning out to be a disappointing Premier. People's votes cannot be taken for granted, and I note that there is a local community independent in Kieran Snape putting his hand up for the seat of Adelaide. And I was very happy to be down on the parklands, indeed, down at the North Adelaide Golf Course on the weekend to help launch the campaign of Kieran Snape. There was a strong community there from right across the city. They were impassioned people, they were articulate people, and they are determined people, and they will not be taken for granted, and they will fight for their democracy. I note the words of Greg Mackey, cultural leader and former councillor of the City of Adelaide, in endorsing Kieran Snape on the weekend, who stated that with 4 years of service on the City Council and many more in the community, Kieran embodies the values that matter to Greater Adelaide, protecting and enhancing our priceless parklands as a shared public asset demands an independent voice. Couldn't agree more, Mr President. I thank those people who have so far not just turned out at those rallies, but have signed petitions and who have expressed their outrage at what is yet another bill being rammed through this parliament once the Malinauskas government has the numbers. I don't begrudge that in terms of the numbers are the numbers of the parliament, but I think the people of South Australia are watching bill after bill be rammed through at an alarmingly quick rate. And I echo the words of the Honourable Michelle Lensink that it has not been enough time to have proper public scrutiny on this bill. And while it does indeed override every single act on our statutes currently, other than the Aboriginal Heritage Act, I note that the Honourable Michelle Lensink noted that the only time she's seen that before was with the Olympic Dam Indenture Bill and then Act. I note actually there was another bill that sought to, under the Rao-Weatherall era, change our innovation laws and very sneakily tried to override every single law of the state other than the Aboriginal Heritage Act. When the public became aware of that particular bill, which indeed stripped away all of our rights as the public currently enjoys them, should something be declared an innovation or in an innovation precinct, the public outcry online saw over 10,000 signatures in hours and tens of thousands in days, and that bill was quietly removed from debate. That was because the public were able to have their voice noted and heard. When sneaky things are put into bills, it is the role of this particular council in the upper house to hold it to scrutiny. I do urge the government to actually be more respectful of this place in terms of the timing of these debates. We've had this sitting on our notice paper for technically a week, but what was in essence 1 day. In terms of the briefing that I received, I do thank the Premier and the Minister Burke's office for the briefing that I received yesterday morning. But I note it was yesterday morning. I have had little time to consult with the public more broadly. There is no Law Society feedback on this bill, and indeed the expertise in the room from those such as council has not been able to be included in this debate. So I flag with the government there will be a lot of questions, not just at clause 1, but as we go through clause by clause of this bill. I remain opposed. I'm not convinced that we need to be sacrificing our state's reputation and our precious parklands for what is golf, but bloodier. And I think $50 million at the very least could be spent on far better things than this Premier has chosen to spend it on through the passage of this bill today.
Mr. Sims.